from a set.
I have one of the original V pistols. One of the I have one of those. That may be the only prop per se that I have. I'm not the brightest candle in the chandelier, so I probably should have been collecting these a long time ago. When I'm through the show, I'm through the show. I'm ready to move on. But that would be probably the most notable of any souvenir or anything like that. I worked with Mark Hamill on a show once, and he said, we're being paid so little on this show. He said, I would rather they gave me a toaster. He said, so that every time I had toast in the morning, I could remember it. He said, because the money that they're paying us, he said, that'll be gone in a moment. He said, but the toaster will always be there.
Yeah, I have a question for you.
Yes.
If you could spend 24 hours with someone, real or fictional, past or present, who would it be and what would you do with them? Philosophical moment.
Well, that's that kind of question, like, if you could go back into an actual Jurassic era and be safe and run around among the dinosaurs, would you like to do that? Of course, on the one hand, the answer is yes, but on the other hand is, the first bug that bit you, you blow up like a balloon and die. So we imagine going back and being with people and spending time that wouldn't be too burdensome to them, not to us. But it would be also challenging to us because we wouldn't know exactly how to approach those people. So I would say, of course, sorry, boring, Shakespeare, but then I wouldn't particularly know how to address him. What I would probably like to know is how he did what he did. I had heard from some unconfirmed, I can't say that it's scientifically proven, it's unconfirmed report, that he wrote pretty briskly, to be or not to be, that is the question, whether tis noble in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows, sounds pretty good, of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against the sea of troubles by opposing in them, to die, to sleep, that he wrote kind of like that, with very few scratchings out, and I'd like to see that. John Wayne.
John Wayne?
John Wayne.
What would you talk about, or what would you do?
I wouldn't play him chess. I hear he was hell on a chessboard. I think I'd like to spend some time in the company of the Ford players and see them work together and get a sense of what that's like. Yeah, because they never. If you see a Western these days, it's not uncommon for the two cowboys meeting in town to get off their horses and go walk over to each other and have a conversation. But in the John Wayne films, they rode their horses while they talked. They rode them in circles. They rode them up, they rode them down, they rode them this way or that, had scenes going on. And the horses contributed to the emotional intensity of the scene and corresponded in their behaviors to the emotional intensity of their riders. And so the expertise of the players was evident in the commonplace and acting of the moment. And so I admire that greatly. Here, and then you go on with Christmas. Boy, I got a chance to act in the theater. See? I'm telling you, there's nothing like it.
It tells a story, doesn't it?
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah, if you give an actor a microphone or a chance to stand on a stage,
there you go.
God help us all. Anyway, now I forgot again. Were we someplace? What were we talking about?
All the world's a stage.
Oh, right. Oh, and then the other thing I've been doing is also I've been composing some songs on the guitar, and also the piano has begun to open up to me in a way that it never did before. There was an old skit that I saw on the Carol Burnett show. It's a standard comedy thing. She runs down the stairs hysterically, with her hair all like this, and she runs over to the piano and begins playing this huge piece by Rachmaninoff, something very complicated. She stops and looks out at the audience and says, "Now I know I'm going crazy. I've never played the piano before in my life." She And it's sort of been like that for me, is that there's it's like a kind of possession. My mother was a pianist, and I did study piano a little bit when I was a kid, but I was raised in Corpus Christi. I wanted to be out in the Gulf of Mexico. But suddenly it's as though her spirit is moving through me somehow when I'm sitting before the keyboard. Things I never even could try before are suddenly occurring, and I feel her presence, and I'm very moved by that. And so that's been happening, and I don't know, there have been other things. I've cured athlete's foot. That's a problem. I don't want to get into that. Okay, anything else?
I saw this hand go up.
I wanted to find out, tell us a lot about what you go through as an actor in your computer role now. What was it like in the Beastmaster to work with the animals? Because even though I know a lot of them are tiny, they can still be unpredictable. So do you have any stories or anything you can tell us about what it was like to work with them?
There are two, the animal stories, that's what we're talking about, right? The animal stories from the Beast, groundswell. I should have done this and run for office. Now, is this better than, this is better? See, if I do this, so you can't see my every precious expression. I'm very torn by this, okay. If I stand close here, do I look like a ghoul? So, Beastmaster. There are too many stories about how extraordinary that first Beastmaster movie turned out to be, to chronicle them all. But I'll tell you one that puts me in the same category as Shirley MacLaine, whatever you think about her recollections of previous lives. The eagle was a wedge-tailed eagle, and she stood about that tall on my arm. And to a predator, it doesn't matter if compared to her you're the size of a hippopotamus. The predator sees you as lunch. That's what they do, and especially birds. If anybody owns a cockatiel or a parrot or anything else, you know that they identify just with their owner. They imprint on their owner, and that's the only person they want to be around. Everybody else is an intruder. So she never really took to me, which is okay. Although she did go way up high in the sky once and then dive down on me and tear a strip off my back. But that's. But I did, and then she walked around like a proud chicken. Well, I showed him, and it's okay. That's she was just. But anyway, so one day I was holding her on my arm, and everybody was working around me. They were hauling cables. We were out in the middle of the desert. They were hauling cables and nailing together sets and dragging lights up and stuff like that. So it wasn't a peaceful moment. There was nothing hypnotic or seance-y about it. And she was standing on my arm. And she never looked at me during the whole show. Then they go dinner. And so you don't want them to look at you. It's fine. You can do whatever you want. Suddenly she looked at me. She went like this. It was just getting to golden hour when the sun was dropping down and they get that beautiful lighting that every movie loves. And the sun was going down, and suddenly she went. And in that instant, I was out of my body. I had a complete astral projection into a universe different than this one, or a perception of it was different anyway. And I was away, like a skydiver jumping out of a plane. And it was ruby red everywhere, ruby red. And I was back. And she looked away. And I took that as a gift. I took that as something that she gave me. I have stories like that about Kipling, the tiger. One of the money people on the show, one of the administrative people, who was particularly hard to suffer when you're working with animals who are all spirit, and the best spirits. Bring me the cat. Bring the cat over here. I want to get a picture of the cat. Bring the cat over here. Bring the cat. Well, first of all, it's not the cat. That's Kipling. So, number one, shut up. But, bring the cat over. Bring the cat. So the tiger came over and sat down, this tall, sitting down. Head was here. Chain on its collar. Looking out of the camera like this. The guy wrapped the chain around his own wrist so that he could look tough and said, "Go ahead, take a picture." And the cat's sitting there looking like this. Camera operator said, "Okay, here we go. 1, 2, and when it went click, between the CL and the ICK of click, the cat jumped, bing, like this." And there's a picture of that guy flying through the air. Like that. And the cat jumped and sat down. And that's how smart they are. So, you know. Huh? I don't, but I'd have it framed if I had it. If I had it, I'd have it framed. So the cat, but they were extraordinary animals. They really were, and there was a strange feeling of authenticity, that we had all come together at the right moment, at the right time, at the right place to give this our best effort and to be sincere about what we were putting on film. And I think that's what makes the film enduring, with the flaws of budget and some other errors, but I think that's what gives it its lasting quality. It's going to be human. It doesn't matter if all you do is snarl all the time. It doesn't matter. You'll be doing it in the place that it says on the script, and then the beast snarls. And that's one of the things about acting that I'd like to impress, is that acting, many people think that acting is emotional first, and then intellectual afterwards. It's not. It's intellectual first, creating a byproduct of emotion that's concomitant to the intellect that goes into it, the understanding that goes into it. If you're walking down the street and you get stung by a bee in real life, you may go, what is it, says your friend. I don't know, my neck, something's on my neck. Oh, you got stung by a bee, get it off, get it off, get it off. So emotion comes first in life sometimes, and intellect follows. But everything in movie and script, and in script for stage or anything else, it's written right there on the page. Two guys are walking down the street, one gets stung on the neck by a bee and says, ow, 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 and the friend says, what's the matter, what's the matter, what's the matter? He says, something's on my neck. So the rules apply no matter who you're playing or in what circumstance or what genre. The same rules apply of architecture and craftsmanship. Okay.
I've probably seen your movie Beastmaster over the years, more than I can count. It's a good movie, and I wanted to know, were you up against any major celebs for that part? Did you get it right off the bat? Did you have to?
Was I up for what?
For Beastmaster, was you up for the part? Were you going up against other actors like a Richard Gere or something like that? During that time.
You mean for the specific role of Beastmaster?
Yeah, was you chosen right on the spot, or did
there were other actors who were up for the role. I never saw them. I never knew who they were.
Right.
I was the Don Coscarelli, who directed Beastmaster, had seen me in The Taming of the Shrew, Shakespeare. And it was from that, based on that he called me in, and we had a series of meetings. Over a space of time, maybe a week and a half, I guess, 2 or 3, and then he was confirmed in his opinion that I was the guy to play the role, and that's how that happened. It's not usual, but it's not unusual either. In getting the role of Mike Donovan, I never even got a chance to read. Kenny Johnson, who was the auteur, the director, producer, writer, called me in front of Brandon Tartikoff, who was at that time, I think, the president of NBC, And he said, watch this. He said, do you have your lines? And I said, yeah, I have my lines. So he took his script, and he said, Mike Donovan. He said, what is it with you? And then I went, and then he read my lines. And then he says, he says. And then he said, oh yeah? Well, you'll never get away with it, Mike Donovan. And then he says, and then he read my other lines. And then he pushed me out the door. And as he pushed me out the door, I heard him saying over my shoulder, isn't he great? So, auditions take very many different forms. Wow.
Let me guess. Petruchio?
Petruchio. Yeah, if you look it up on YouTube or something like that, you'll see, if you do Marc Singer, Taming of the Shrew, you'll see bits and pieces of it.